Hey, and welcome back to part 4 of my concrete loudspeaker series. Let's get started, shall we?
Next thing we're going to do is cut some of this wood down so that we can use this as bracing for the inside of the cabinet to screw the front panels to. Like this, with large quantities of glue holding everything in place. Alright, so now we've got those just held in place temporarily. We can measure how long we need the other cut piece to be. This is where having a cross-cut sled would be so nice. Okay, so now we need to glue in those braces. Alright, so we got our glue, which is pretty gnarly stuff, and then we're gonna glue the wood to the concrete and clamp it down. Alright, so cut the front and back panels. Now we're going to round them over with our router. Here's one that I cut earlier. Alright, and there we go. Nice clean sharp edges there, so hopefully that'll make it a little easier to veneer. Now we just got to do some more sanding. There we go, after a little sanding.
To round the mounting holes for the tweeter and woofer, I made some 3D printed templates which sat on the baffle and allowed me to precisely route the odd tweeter and woofer shapes.
Okay gang, we are back in my very messy garage now, and I'm going to veneer the front and back panels of the concrete loudspeakers, because the front and back panel are going to be made of wood. So I've got my veneer and I've got my MDF, and what I've done is I've rolled out some slightly watered down Titebond 2, and then what I'm going to do is heat it up with my iron here. I've got the back of the veneer has also been saturated with some lightly watered down Titebond as well. So what we're going to do is take this guy and we're going to kind of iron it over, making sure that we get the figuring that we want so that we can match the other side. The challenge with this is making sure we can get these roundovers, because I've got it rounded over both ways, so we really need to make sure we've got the length right. And that is the biggest challenge. And then we want the figuring that we want centered, so I'm centering around these two dots right here. So we're going to just try to get everything lined up as best we can. Alright, I'm just going to hit it on here just to get it set. There we go. Alright, that feels pretty good. We're going to use the steam in just a second to our advantage. And then we just want to kind of heat things up, Got the iron on the highest setting. Next, I'm going to pick a roundover to do and start wrapping that. So I'm going to start on the sides where the grain kind of naturally wants to allow it to flex rather than using the harder way. So now we want to turn that steam on. Because that steam's going to help soften up the veneer. See how well it's rounded over on there. See, it'll wrap all the way around, which is great. Let's see how that did. Yeah, see, so that looks pretty good. I want to make sure it's bonded all the way to the edge there. And see if it's a little bit loose, so I'm going to need to tighten that up. But that's okay, because I got to come back the other way anyhow. So pretty happy with that. So now, what we want to do is kind of trim this edge down. Which we want to do by scoring rather than cutting all the way through if we can help it. So we'll come back and we'll sand that down. Make sure it's cut perfectly. So there we go. Same on the other side. So now we're going to do the corner, which is the trickiest part. So that's that one. What we're gonna try to do is basically fold the corners over so they sit kind of like a Christmas present. Okay. Pretty happy with that. So here's where that steam comes into play again. Crud out of there.
So here's what I'm doing here. I'm trying to use the steam to soften up the veneer and push it down with the iron at the same time, kind of stretching it over that roundover, using lots and lots of steam to really soften up that veneer and make it more flexible. With the roundover veneered, now I'm just going to try to cut off the excess with the X-Acto knife as close as I can. So what I'm trying to do is kind of get those two ends overlapped and then cut them flush so that they're butted right up against one another and there's just as little space as possible between the two ends of the veneer.
Okay, so it's still a little bit ugly, but there's the corner so far. After it's sanded, it'll look a little bit nicer. We'll do a little bit of fill just to hide that crack. And hopefully it'll just look like wood grain. All right, so now we've got to do the other side. Okay, so I got one panel done. As you can see, it's not perfect. There's some kind of cratiness to the corners there. That's actually just a bit of overlap there. So a little bit of sanding, some filler, hopefully we'll take care of that. We'll have to do a little bit of work to get that right. But it came out okay. So overall, I'm pretty happy with how that looks. Okay, so what we're going to do today is we're going to work on dry fitting the drivers into the cabinet, because as you can see, there might not be room. I may actually have to make some relief cuts around here in the supports. So I might have to come through and cut those out a little bit with jigsaw or sawzall, and so that the driver can actually fit in there, because as of right now, she no fit. All right, first step is we need to mark where we want to make our relief cuts. We'll do that. The other thing I'm concerned about is making sure I've got enough space for my screws. So I've got a couple options there. One is that I can just shorten the screw to the exact right length, but I want to make sure that there's enough room for the nut to engage as well. Okay. So there we go. Now we've got our cut lines made. I'm going to take the drivers and put them out of harm's way. Yep, beautiful. Unfortunate. Oh, perfect. Okay, our next step is to drill the hole for the driver. So for that, we've got our handy dandy center punch. I'm just gonna stick the drivers in backwards like that. Shouldn't matter which way it goes, but just in case. Get our punch nicely. All right, so now we've got our little holes marked there. Yep, good, good. All good all the way around. So now we just have to do the other side. Okay, so the next step is we're going to drill some holes through the bracing so that we can mount the front panel to the bracing by screwing through it. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to use my handy dandy super long drill extension that I've mounted my screw bit in, and we're going to very, very carefully try to screw down the front panel. All right, action shot. Let's see if we can get this shot here. All right, now that we've got those screws in, we're going to take them back out again. Okay, so I've pulled the back panel off. You can see where those drywall screws are biting in to the MDF here for the front panel. So it's actually pretty helpful. So they should be able to hold it on there while the glue sets. A couple of clamps on there to boot. Be good to go. Okay, the next step is that we want to mark and drill the holes to mount the back panel. The back panel is going to be screwed on and sealed up with some tape, gasket tape. Okay, now we just got to sand that back and countersink the bits. All right, there we go. So there's the back panel, ready for final finishing. All right, next up, I'm going to do polyurethane on here, just as a form of protection over the finish. It's already got a couple coats of Danish oil on there, on teak, but I want to give it just a little bit more protection, so. Our next order of business is we need to insulate the box. Not because we want to keep it from getting cold, but because we want to absorb some of the back wave from the woofer. So what I've got here is I've got some denim insulation, and I'm going to use that to line the inside of the box to absorb that back wave. So let's get started. I'm going to try cutting the panels to size and spraying them with some spray adhesive to get the insulation to stick. I'm going to try that, see how it goes. I think that's one done for now. Once we get the crossover in place, I'll know a little better if we want to do some more. All right, that's our completely insulated box. Well, I say completely for now. Still got to do the back panel and figure out where we're going to put the crossover, and then we'll finish it up. All right, so the next step is that we're going to put some holes in for the binding posts. I've got these nice Dayton heavy-duty binding posts. I like the satin finish. Looks really nice. So we're going to put those in. spinning or anything. So here's the front baffle looking a little bit shiny from the polyurethane. So we're gonna stick the driver on there. First, we're gonna put on a little bit of gasket tape. So just gonna roughly measure how much gasket tape I need by going around the outside. 2 buffalo girls go around the outside. Around the outside. There we go. Not stabbing yourself is important. Okay, we got our RM Cantus AC130 F1. Push that in here. Just kind of get it seated like so. And then I'm actually using machine screws. So these are panhead machine screws with a hex drive. And I got these from Parts Express. Tight for now. These are locking nuts, nylon locking nuts, aka nylock. Alright, there we go. All mounted up. Now we can start wiring. Alright, next step is we're going to put the front baffle on, and then finally we'll get around to mounting these crossovers. So to mount the front baffle, we're going to use a bit of our glue, which is hopefully not hardened. Nope. There's enough of it. Just do a nice thin bead all the way around. You can see I've already got the wires soldered on to the drivers there. So hopefully we can just drop them on there. Alright, here goes. It's another one of those moments of no return. Now the weight of it would probably hold itself together, but so there's the inside. The screws holding that front panel down, woofers mounted. Got our snazzy denim insulation. There we go. So there's the front so far. Side, you can see we're getting a little bit of squeeze out there on the glue, so before the glue dries it's pretty easy to clean up. We just get it with the scraper. Just like that, and then wipe it with the towel, which I can't do because I only have 2 hands.